So, Wai Jaesong asks Linghu if he's back to his senses and says that he noticed the fight and that he should leave the platform. Linghu asks if he really lost, then starts laughing and says that it's funny. Wai Jaesong stares at him, and Linghu says he can't believe he's saying that to him, and asks again if he lost the fight, and quickly does a somersault and gets up. Wai Jaesong in his thoughts wonders what's happening, and how he can be so well after vomiting blood and losing consciousness, and now he's talking as if he were an old man, or another person transferred. Then Wai Jaesong wonders if the fight changed his personality. Then he says that even though he has improved, he will end the fight. Changum apologizes and says he couldn't hold back his strength and fears that Linghu might get seriously hurt if they continue this duel, so Linghu says he's okay and asks to continue. Because, as he can see, his double shadow fist and even his flying kick didn't cause much damage to him. And with a disdainful face, he asks his brother if that's not true, surprising Changum, and with an angry expression on his face, he calls him a crazy weakling. Then, Linghu tells him to use the martial art he's hiding and says he really wants to see it. Changum asks what he's talking about. Then, Linghu says he knows everything and asks if he's hiding the essence fist. Wai Jaesong is surprised and asks Changum if this is true, and if by any chance he learned the essence fist without his permission, and explains that the essence fist of MANHUA is more known for its sword technique. But before learning it, one must learn the MANHUA essence fist, and the technique can only be taught to those approved by the master, meaning Changum has not been approved to learn it yet. Changum asks him to wait and says he happened to see the older brother practicing in the middle of the night, and that he learned it by accident. Linghu says that obviously he is lying, and clearly it was not an accident. Wai Jaesong asks Changum to tell the truth. When Wai Jaesong was about to punish him, the master says that this is quite surprising and mentions that he had no idea that Jiam had such a passion for learning. He says that the past is in the past, and there's nothing they can do about it. In this case, the master would give him special permission to use it only once. Wai Jaesong is surprised. Then the master instructs Wai Jaesong to leave the platform, stating that he is disrupting the boy's training. In his thoughts, Wai Jaesong wonders what his master is planning. Then, Linghu tells the older brother not to worry about him and that he should step down because it will end quickly. Everyone is shocked by Linghu's words and wonders if he has really gone insane. Changum agrees to restart the fight. They quickly resume the fight, facing each other. Changum asks Linghu why he is so arrogant and that he has never known him to be like this. He yells that he will regret saying that and charges towards Linghu. Linghu says that he disappeared, and everyone around wonders the same. Then, we see Linghu evaluating the situation and saying that he will probably use the flying fist stance, and the higher the user jumps, the greater the power. We see Changum charging towards Linghu, and when he almost reaches him, Wai Jaesong wonders if he is really trying to kill Linghu because he jumped too high. Then, we see that Linghu easily dodged Changum's attack, saying that this move leaves the user vulnerable. Changum is meters away from Linghu and with his back turned. When Changum turns to see what Linghu is planning, he is surprised by a low blow that knocks him down, rolling in pain on the ground. Changum asks Linghu if this is an honorable move and if he has no shame. Linghu then asks if he wants to continue the fight even with such a big difference in skills. Changum asks how dare he mock him. He quickly goes to kick him again, exclaiming that someone without skill like him can only dodge the attacks of the best fighter in the restored sect of MANHUA. As Changum's punch approaches Linghu, he quickly grabs Changum's arm, immobilizes him, and mocks him, saying that this is the best and it's shameful on his part. Changum curses him, and then we see Linghu throwing him away. The master declares that the fight is over, and everyone is surprised by the sudden turnaround in the battle between Linghu and Changum. The master finds it incredible because Linghu was neither fast nor strong, yet he managed to predict all the opponent's moves. Changum asks how he can do that, and Linghu explains that he tried to control his strength, but he can't do more than that. Worn out from the fight, Changum accepts that he will have to kill him, shocking everyone. We see Changum using the essence fist, and Linghu waits for the strike. Changum asks if he is afraid now and that he will regret all of this. Linghu says he'll pay to see if that power can destroy him. Changum instructs Linghu to get ready. In his thoughts, Linghu wonders if he should let Changum attack him and thinks that if he were in his original body, he would have killed him like a mere ant. Even with this pathetic body. Then we see Changum charging towards Linghu, and Linghu decides to face him head-on. Wai Jaesong yells for Linghu not to try to block the blow because there's no way he can do it. The master tells him to be quiet and that both should see what he's going to do, assuring that the boy won't get hurt at all if he's right. Finally, we see Chegim delivering a blow to Linghu, but as he does so, Chegim is immediately thrown away as if he were nothing. Everyone around is surprised by Chegim's unlikely defeat, and even Chegim finds it impossible. Linghu says he didn't become a master by cultivating all that power while avoiding others' gazes. He can achieve arrogance by using less than 80% of the Hua Essence Fist, and what just happened was less than 50%. He couldn't even use 30% of the fist's power. Chegim shouts and asks what he knows. Then, Linghu recites a poem and says that cherry blossoms bloom even before the harsh winter passes, and in this way, he should release his essence fist when it's limitless and vigorous. Both Jaesong and the master are astonished by Linghu's words. He continues, saying that only then can the power and fragrance grow, and it is possible to tell that he has fully mastered the power of the Hua Essence Fist by the scent of the flowers. Suddenly, a pink glow emanates from him, and the disciples ask if this is the scent of cherry blossoms, noting that the aroma is incredibly strong. Chegim asks Linghu when he learned about the Essence Fist, and Linghu says he doesn't remember because it's been a long time, wondering in his thoughts if it was in his era. And he says that he is already 80 years old and doesn't even know how many martial arts he has mastered. Then, Linghu asks the older brother to put an end to it. He warns Chegim that if he doesn't come to him, he will come after Chegim. Chegim is startled but still instructs Linghu to give his all, expressing surprise that Linghu knows how to neutralize the Hua Essence Fist. Despite the strength of Chegim's attack, Linghu mentions that its range is shorter than that of the double fist. Linghu says that he will give Chegim a narrow space to execute his deadliest attack. Chegim calls Linghu and says he will gladly receive his blow. When Linghu finally goes to strike Chegim, he disappears from the platform, and a strong scent of cherry blossoms acts as a feint. The actual move is a strike to Chegim's back, catching him off guard. Linghu mentions that it's a punch technique even children can imitate. The punch is so powerful that it breaks Chegim's ribs, and he is immediately thrown away. A simple yet extremely strong punch. Everyone in the audience is crying and surprised by Linghu's majestic punch that knocked Chegim unconscious. Then, we discover that, in reality, Dongfang Bubai was in Linghu's body. He wonders how he failed in the body swap. Dongfang Bubai attempted to use a legendary demonic art that allows the user to freely move the soul of others and control the target's body. Dongfang Bubai reveals that 14 years ago, he placed Linghu Tian in a state of hibernation to destroy his mind and steal his body. Among all the opponents he fought, Linghu had the highest potential, and his face suited Dongfang Bubai's taste. He admits that he should have succeeded in obtaining that body, and because of this failure, Linghu Tian was given the great honor of being the hero who saved the world. Dongfang Bubai says that his plan was to completely destroy the orthodox sects from within, by acting as the great hero Linghu Tian, and that this would be their punishment, for those who betray the cult of the sun and the moon deserve destruction. That night, the master asks if Chegim is okay, and Jaesong says that his Kai center is intact, but his ribs are broken, and for now, he will stop training and rest. Then, the master says that it must have been tough for him. Jaesong says he will take his leave, and the master asks if Jaesong is not curious about why he allowed the fight to continue to the end, even after trying to expel him from the sect, suggesting that Jaesong probably thinks the master is losing his mind. Jaesong responds that he also allowed the fight to continue, knowing that the master has high expectations for the students. The master says that it exceeded his expectations. Jaesong asks if Linghu still has to leave the sect, and the master says they should pretend it never happened, and that they should pay more attention to Linghu because it is their duty to help that child grow. In the next scene, we see Linghu staring into the horizon, saying he can't sleep because of this unresolved issue. Even though he mastered the great art of soul transfer just a year before the collapse of the cult of the sun and the moon, he finds it difficult to sleep. He shouts, as mastering this power was very challenging, and Dongfang Bubai says he almost fell into a state of Kai deviation. We then see a flashback of Dongfang Bubai spitting blood from his nose. He mentions that he wished he could have closed the gates and focused on the cult of the art if possible, but the chance to conquer the world revealed itself to him coincidentally. He wonders if it was a trap and explains that the one who discovered and offered him this great art was one of his most trusted subordinates, Zhang Longyan. He questions how someone as loyal as Zhang Longyan could have betrayed him. He theorizes that at the moment Linghu Tian's love broke and Dongfang Bubai tried to commit suicide, someone must have killed his empty body. He explains that the main rule of the soul transfer art is that the target needs to be alive. In other words, Their heart must be beating no matter what. Linghu says it couldn't have been that, as the only people alive at that moment were Dongfang Bubai and Linghu Tian. He comes to the final conclusion that it might have been a conspiracy, and the dreams he had all these days are proof of it. The recurring part is the moment he was taken from the Korean peninsula and had his penis cut off without knowing the reason. The moment he is crowned as the leader of the cult of the sun and the moon. And coincidentally, Linghu turned 15 yesterday. Could it be that his ego as Dongfang Bubai suddenly awakened, or was it just a coincidence? Dongfang Bubai says it seems very suspicious. The next day, Jaesong shouts for everyone to wake up, announcing that it's time for their training. Today is designated for individual training, and all the brothers are already prepared for the day's exercises. Jaesong instructs Linghu to wait in front of the dormitory, as they need to talk after Jaesong visits the infirmary. Linghu agrees. Upon reaching the infirmary, Jaesong sees Chegim knocked out on the infirmary bed. He tries to wake him up and questions why he did this, emphasizing that martial arts are taught to students only when they are ready. Jaesong expresses his disappointment that Chegim became so impatient just because he was being observed. He wonders if poverty made him so restless, sharing his own experience of overcoming poverty with Linghu Tian's and MANHWA's teachings, which helped him become who he is today. Jaesong wanted to pass on his gratitude to the younger disciples, hoping to restore the sect through them, but now he feels he failed to instill hope in Chegyam. Despite this, Jaesong believes Chegyam has the potential to become the pillar of the restored MANHWA sect. Both he and the master entrusted the sect to Chegyam, expecting him to become a teacher who can convey these feelings to the next generation. Jaesong encourages Chegyam to endure and, just as he believes in him, hopes Chegyam can trust in himself. He mentions that learning the secret technique of MANHWA involved breaking a sect rule, and when Chegyam wakes up, he'll have to face punishment. Jaesong hopes Chegyam understands why this is necessary, and urges him to focus on improvement before leaving the infirmary. In the next scene, tears flow from Chegyam's eyes. When he opens his eyes, he dismisses Jaesong's words as nonsense, questioning if they really think he believes in such things. Chegyam recalls using the essence fist and how they acted furious but said nothing when Linghu used it. He believes that spending countless days practicing the Hua essence fist, it's impossible for Linghu, who lacks talent, to have seen and copied the technique just once. Facing the horizon, Chegyam accuses Jaesong of secretly giving Linghu the manual and teaching him the technique. He concludes that Jaesong and the master don't trust him. Deciding not to be fooled by sweet words any longer, Chegyam declares that he will now do things his way. In the following frame, Jaesong asks Linghu how he learned the Hua fist technique. He warns Linghu not to lie, stating that copying the Hua fist technique isn't something you can do with just one glance. Linghu shouts, claiming Jaesong underestimates the technique and that, compared to his legendary martial arts, it's nothing. However, this was all Linghu's thoughts, and realizing he can't say that, he confesses to spying on Jaesong and Chegyam while they practiced. Jaesong asks Linghu why his bandage is wrapped like that and calls him an idiot for wrapping it too loosely. He emphasizes the importance of securing it tightly to prevent the wound from reopening. Dongfang remarks that he wouldn't know how to wrap a bandage since he never had to deal with such minor injuries and wonders why Linghu's memories are resurfacing now. Dongfang then notes that the gorilla has a kind side, taking care of his wounds regardless of their size, even though this body now belongs to Dongfang. He decides to take advantage of Linghu until he becomes stronger, but suddenly, Jaesong gives Dongfang a smack on the head. Dongfang questions how Jaesong dares to hit him and imagines delivering a deadly blow in return. However, it's revealed to be Dongfang's imagination, and he decides to overlook it this time, asking why he received the smack. Jaesong points out that Linghu's clothes are a mess, and despite the bandages, the front of his shirt is open. Jaesong proceeds to fix Linghu's clothes and asks why he's so sloppy today. In Dongfang's thoughts, he mentions being dressed by servants and realizing he may not have dressed himself since becoming the leader of the Sun and Moon cult. Jaesong mentions Chegyam being unwell due to yesterday's fight. In Dongfang's thoughts, he notes that it seems Chegyam has forgotten about the Hua fist. Linghu starts feeling nauseous and complains about a headache, mentioning that he can taste something in his mouth. Jaesong says he'll interrogate Linghu when he's feeling better and warns him not to attempt anything foolish, instructing him to return to regular training. Linghu agrees, stating that he got away with it and that he needs to figure out what happened and why he woke up in this body. Dongfang comments that unfortunately, the body is too weak for him to decipher anything at the moment. Suddenly, one of the sect's disciples calls Linghu for training. Linghu states that he needs to recover his martial arts first and accepts that intense training is the only option. In the next scene, Wai Jaesong asks the master how they should punish Linghu and Chegium. The master advises letting it go, stating that they broke sect rules by stealing the Hua Essence Fist. He acknowledges that Mount Hua has already fallen and tells Wai Jaesong that building the restored Mount Hua sect was challenging. The master recounts being ridiculed for pursuing the ghosts of Mount Hua, with no one willing to join them. However, now they have disciples. The sect is in a stable phase, and Chegium and Linghu learn the technique just by observing. The master emphasizes the level of skill required for such feats and declares Chegium and Linghu as the hope for the future of the restored Mount Hua sect, determined to reclaim the sect's former glory. The master emphasizes that, for the sake of the future, they must give the children a chance and change the rules to prevent such incidents from happening again. Wai Jaesong agrees with the master, who declares that they will witness the resurgence of the Mount Hua sect. The next day, birds in the trees are startled by Linghu, vigorously punching a rock in the forest until it turns crimson. Linghu continues this relentless pounding until his fists start bleeding. Exhausted, he collapses on the ground. Dongfang remarks on the weakness of this body, considering his previous invincible one in the east. He expresses frustration with the current situation, noting that this miserable body poses a risk to his life, and survival hinges on his extensive martial arts knowledge and experience in countless battles. Dongfang believes he only needs to expand Linghu's limited Kai Center and justifies the means by the ends. He decides to choose martial arts techniques that suit this body, deeming the focus on Mount Hua's ancient arts unnecessary. Reflecting on his flashbacks, Dongfang recalls the difficulty of controlling side effects, ruling out certain martial arts. He concludes that using an orthodox sect's martial art with yin-yang harmony is the only option. Dongfang starts practicing the Taiji Kai technique, a fundamental cultivation method of the Wuding sect. As he employs the technique, a brilliant blue light emanates from his body. Dongfang explains that he must gather Yang Kai and Yin Kai in a ratio of 7:3, and then compress them within the Kai Center.